Hi, welcome to this short video. We're going to do a demonstration on the Mango risk assessment module. So what we've done is we've jumped on to our Mango demo account and we're going to walk through the process of recording a risk and how that risk can be captured in a multitude of different ways, and then also show you a method of how you can create a risk register associated to multiple risks, and also a demonstration of how risks can be reported through the app, say from a site. Just a little reminder that this session is getting recorded and it's available on our YouTube channel and LinkedIn. And we'd like to ask you to subscribe to these so that you can see this amongst other items we have in here. Okay, so in terms of Mango, if you need to know more about Mango, please contact us or get onto our website in the Mango section and you'll get a full description of everywhere that's available to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the risk management module itself. So in terms of risk management, we have to create inside Mango the templates that we're going to use for risk. So risk can be presented in a multitude of different ways, and we've got various examples of different templates, which we see in this column here. So for example, we have a workshop standard 5x5 risk template. We have risk templates associated to stakeholder risk. We have risk templates associated to method statements, change management, information security, and a multitude of others as well. So one of the ones we're going to focus on here is we're going to focus on demonstrating a workshop risk. And in particular, this one, what we're looking at is a workshop risk associated to lifting operations. So let me just click into this lifting operation risk assessment. I'm just going to push the menu to the left to give us a little bit more space, what we can see. So here we have a risk assessment associated to lifting operations. We have our risk identification, which is our matrix, which is being used. And of course, that can be modified specifically to your requirements. Inside the risk form itself, we have our hazard descriptions, which are associated to dropped loads, damage to equipment, pinch, crush or amputation or a fatality, and damage to other assets. We also identify who, what is at risk, and we're saying here that this could be employees, visitors or contractors, or assets and their equipment, or all of the above. We don't have any existing controls associated to this particular activity, and what we're identifying here as the consequences of this going wrong in this lifting operation is seen as a 5, which associates further up here to this area here, which is a 5 on our risk matrix, and the initial probability or likelihood of this occurring is a 4. So if we take a 4 by a 5 gives us 20, and we can see the initial risk rating is identified as a 20. We've got a bunch of additional controls, as you can see here, around training, the use of the equipment, referring to assessments and certification associated to the equipment, and a number of controls and barriers that we put in place associated to lifting activities, including that associated to safe lifting loads and also barriers associated to maybe a lift plan, for example. Based on these activities, we've done an assessment with the workforce, and we see that the consequences could potentially still be the same if it goes wrong, but the probability of these hazards occurring, we've dropped from a 4 down to a 2, giving us a residual rating of 10. What I can also show you is that we can internally link this risk assessment to some of our internal documents that we have in Mango. So we can link to our document module like this. So we can maybe try and identify something we have in here that we might want to associate to this particular risk, and we can link that document directly to this risk assessment. So it could be a policy or a plan, for example. We can also link to external guidance. So we can pop in here, for example, something to do with the health and safety. So we can say here, health and safety executive website. And let's go for heavy lifting. And there's probably some guidance around here associated to heavy lifting within the health and safety website. So I'm just going to click on this, but it could be anything. So if we just simply take that link, we can then pop that into our risk assessment, which means when that's refreshed or updated by the health and safety executive, we're always going to get the fresh link directly in our risk assessment. We also may want to identify how we monitor this activity, and it may be done in a multitude of different ways. So we might say here that this is reviewed as part of our risk assessment review process, and we can save on this. So this is a risk that we already have in place. We've done a quick update of it, and we've got some history in here as well associated to it and what it's linked to. What I now want to show you is how you would populate these particular risks into a risk register. So it might be a register of a warehouse or a workshop that's new to you, or you've taken over a new area, but you already have some existing risk assessments in place. So if we go down to risk management and go to manage registers, we want to create a new risk register and give it a name. So this might be a new warehouse. So we're going to call this, let's say, the warehouse in Aberdeen. Risk register. Now what it says is, what template do you want to use? So we know that it is associated to our workshop and warehouse. Oh, so we've got one here. There's a template we're going to use. And it now says, what risks do you want to pull through that you've done an evaluation on? So we go through this and we can identify what type of activities are going on within this warehouse or workshop and pull them through to a register. So we know that there could be concurrent work taking place. We'll know that fire and evacuation is relevant. We also might know that we have forklift operations. We're not handling any substances, but we are going to have lifting operations, and we're also going to be loading and unloading trucks. We may also want to say that we might have lone workers from time to time in here. So there's some controls around that, and of course some manual handling. And I'll select another couple here just to add to it. So we're not going to have working at height, but we are going to have some storage of equipment and the potentials for slip, trips and falls. So if we hit OK on that, we can see that our risk assessment has pulled, our risk register has pulled through these assessments. We go next. We can order these assessments in a various ways that might be important to us. So we may say that fire is most important, then possibly forklift, then our lifting operations, and then we might say also lifting and loading, and possibly also storage activities. So we're kind of ordering these as we see appropriate for our particular warehouse or workshop that we're in. We then might go next, and it's asking us, do you want an event built into Mango that will notify someone to do a review of this particular risk register? So it's almost like an assessment. So if we say yes, we do, we hit add, and we say what it is we're going to do. So let's call this an annual review of the warehouse in Aberdeen risk register. And we're going to say that we want this review to start. Let's say the first review of it, when we put it in, is going to take place on this date. And then because it's an annual review, we're going to do it every year. And we'll give an alert to the person that's doing it a couple of weeks ahead. And if they do not complete it, they will get reminded every month. The event owner in this case, we're going to identify as this individual. And we're going to copy in also, let's say, someone in our operations team, excuse me, that may also want to know that this is taking place. If we had someone outside of our organization that assisted us, say like a consultant or something, then we can also put in their external email address here, and Mango will also notify them. This area here is where we write the text of what people are going to receive in the email. So simply it could just be, hello, a review of the warehouse risk register for Aberdeen is required. Please undertake this within Mango with appropriate persons and sign off if no changes required. Where changes are required, modify, record, share, and communicate. So it's something like this. Okay. Then what we have is we've got an escalation. Like everything in Mango, when there's an alert for something, we have an escalation built in, let's say, to cover for people that are not very effective, or for people that maybe have gone on long-term sick leave or on holiday leave. So let's say that this is going to go to our health and safety manager, make him aware that this individual that has this task has not undertaken it after 3 months, and he will get an alert, and he may wish to pass that to someone else or just make the individual aware of it. Okay, so we've identified what the requirements are built into this. We now just simply save it, and we now have an alert built in to our risk register. So we can see here, if we just give ourselves a little bit more space, we can see our full risk register now populated with fire and evacuation, forklift operations, lifting operations, and so on. And we can see by looking across here, we can see at the top what the hazard description is, who or what is at risk, any existing controls, the initial probability and consequences, and the initial risk rating, then the additional controls, and what our residual rating is, and, for example, any link to internal documents or external reference. For example, here's the government website that I put in. Similarly, we can also export this if it's something that's required in paper. So we can export this to PDF. We can include it as part of a pack, maybe going to a site or something like that. And that's effectively a method of putting together a risk register from our internal risk assessments that we've undertaken for various hazards and tasks. What I want to do is now just show you a quick example of, let's say, for example, someone is out at site and is using the Mango app. Present the app right now in front of me, but I'm going to show you the quick add method, which is using the exact same methodology as the app. So if I click into this plus button up here and I do a quick add of risk, it simply asks me first and foremost what is the risk template I want to use. So if I go ahead and use the one that I had before, which is the workshop one, it then pulls in the template which I wish to use. It asks me for a name. So let's just say that I want to add an additional risk here, which is associated to some other activity that we know that's going on. Let's say that there is some additional radioactive material at site and we don't have a risk assessment associated to that. We identify who the person is that's reporting it. So let's say it's this guy working at the site is doing this. He may wish to take a photograph and upload it associated to the risk or the hazard so that someone can see it when they're doing the review. And this individual will send this request to someone in order to review that. So what we've got now here is the identification of what it is. And we can see here that there's an additional concern being raised. So this has been given a risk assessment number. or a risk reporting number, and it's been added into a list of reported risks. This is separate from the risk register and is captured inside reported risk register. And the basis of this really is so that any dynamic assessments or things that stop a job can be captured and reviewed at a later stage if required, and possibly identified as maybe a new risk that needs to be assessed for future jobs. Once we've done that assessment of that risk, we can add it to our list of risks for future requirements, and therefore we ensure that we capture things. So it's a quick way of ensuring that where maybe new risks occur at a site and the individuals working at the site possibly do a risk assessment dynamically, but do not record this so that it can be picked up into our recorded management of risks inside Mango. So fairly straightforward process. What I want to do is just run through another example of how this would work in another way. So for example, in this case, what I'm going to talk about is information security risk. So I'll just do a quick search on information security. So we can see here what we want to talk about is we want to talk about a concern associated to, let me just extend this. Let's say we do associated to data deletion. So we've got a concern here that within our information security management, we've got a concern here associated to the risk of data being deleted from our systems. So again, we've used a risk assessment criteria, which again could be modified specifically for information security. We've identified that the location of this risk is associated to our Frankfurt branch, and it's associated to a particular product that we use. And we have identified this as accidental or malicious deletion of required data. We've also identified whether this data is associated to something that is from a criticality point of view. And we've linked it to what we have called our statement of applicability, which is associated to ISO 27001 information security management system. And the harm is the loss of that data. The risk to the business is high. And we've got a bunch of controls we have in place associated to version history, backup, and needs for assessing critical data. And we also have email alerts when certain accounts may be accessed when they shouldn't be. We also have some additional controls here associated to our policies around access control policies and access control procedures. And based on this control methodology we believe the risk to this is quite low. We also have some mitigation measures around our full Office 365 backup, which we're planning to implement in the future. And this is raised as an improvement within Mango. And where required, contingency steps. We've identified responsibilities here are with all our staff, and we monitor this through a risk assessment review. So as you can see here, we have undertaken this risk assessment using a different template with different data being captured. Some of it very similar to the methodology of risk assessment, but some which is a bit more specific to ISO 27001 information security management. If we felt the need to adjust this, and if additional controls came in, we simply edit this, go down and change the fields. So we might now say here that we have a full Office 365 backup. So we can simply just enter this information into here and show that full Office 365 cloud backup now online and working. So we deem now that this additional requirement, which was this additional mitigation measure, can now come out of here because it's a control and action we have in place. And we simply save this. This shows that we've made a change and keeps history associated to this in terms of things that have happened. But likewise, we can add this to a risk register. So we may wish to add specific information security risks at certain locations within our organization. So we go back down to our manage registers, and we may say here that we want to do an information security risk register, and it may be generic across our whole business, or it may be specific to a location. We identify the information security register, and we select the appropriate risks which are associated to us. So we have data deletion, we have lost or stolen devices, maybe access to Mango, we may have certain competence systems, and we have various systems we've identified within here, including where that could be related to lost or stolen devices, and maybe something else here associated to people accessing meeting rooms. We hit next here, it pulls through this data as before. We have the opportunity to raise an event to review this. In this case, we'll say no. We hit save, and now we have a register in place associated to information security. So we just do a search on our risk register, and we can see we have a new information security risk register here, which captures the data as presented. If we wish to create a complete new type of risk register template, then this is done within our system admin area. So quickly to show you this, we go into system admin, scroll down to risk setup and go into risk templates. Takes us into the area that we had before. So we can see we've got 22 different templates in use here, but we may want to use another type of template, create a brand new one. So we wanted to do that. It asks what it is. So let's just call this a hazard register template. It might ask for what type of methodology we use. So we may wish to upload certain information from our systems, or we might simply want to just say that we identify this as low, medium, high, and critical. So this is our rating methodology. And then down here, it asks for an abbreviation to give along with the numbers that are recorded associated to it. So if we call this a hazard register, we'll go for HR. And who is the person that's going to coordinate this? So for demo purposes, I'll put myself as well as the investigator. And we've got a capability here to email the people who raise the risk, email the people who will undertake an investigation or various different things. So we're simply going to save here, which identifies our key areas on the top end of the new template. And we're now going to add some new fields. So when we go into add the fields and we click edit, we have a suite of options here associated to what type of data we want to enter. Do we want to enter tick box capability? Do we want to enter drop-down lists? Do we want a date? Do we want a text area? Do we want to internal or externally link? So in the case of the first one, let's just go for a text line and we give it a name. So let's just call it observed hazard. And now we want to add another, and we want to call that, let's say, a drop-down list. And again, it asks, what it's associated to. So we might say its location and what is the list we want them to choose from. So let's say Glasgow, Edinburgh, Frankfurt, Paris. And then we want to continue to build that up. So we might want to add a checkbox, and that might be if it's new, so new risk. So if it's a brand new risk, maybe we want to put that tick box in so the person can check it. We also may want to put the date in associated to the date that it's recorded or the date the assessment is done. And then we may want to add additional items in here associated to the process of doing it. So we might want to put a text area in here and say, list up all, so let's just call it existing controls. Okay. And let's jump back. So we have existing controls, and let's just say we add one more that is a drop-down list. And let's just say this is risk after control. So again, we might say we have the option of going low, medium, high, or critical. So I've now created my new template. It's called, it's in a template which we're going to refer to as the hazard register template. We've put some fields into it, and it's now available to use. So if we go back into this area, we go to the main risk area, or we go to add a new risk. So we ask us to select whichever one. So we can see now we have this new hazard risk register template available to us. And here we have the capability to add additional information. Similarly, we can use the field in quite a bit more detail by managing risks. So we go into our risk management area. It will ask us to select a register. We select this one, and it will now pull through the fields that we identified previously, allowing us to complete whichever it may be. So this one is a hazard register. So we observe what is the observed hazard. So let's say that this is related to oil spill. The location is in Frankfurt. It is a new risk. The date associated to it was identified yesterday. What controls do we have? So no controls for spills in place. Let's see, some various information here. So proposed new controls are, let's see, equipment maintenance program, could spell. And let's also say that we have spill training, kits, etc. And the risk after the controls we see as being medium risk, and we're going to monitor this through our risk assessment review. So we now go up and check that we've documented everything. We need to have the risk name here. So we're going to call this oil spill management, and we hit save. That has now recorded this new risk, which can be sent now to be reviewed, and the undertaking of that can then give you the capability to add it to the risk register. So just a quick reminder, so the methodology of management of risks inside Mango is you can have existing risks which are uploaded into Mango, which can then be added to a register. You have the capability to add new risks that come are made aware to you, or hazards that are made aware to you. This can be done directly in the main desktop, on the quick add menu, or through the app. And there is always the capability to send these for review, and these would be handled in the My Risk area, where investigations can be done against new risks which have been added for review. So here we can see some new risk associated to waste, which has been reported by this individual. And we can see slightly different risk methodology used here, and we have the capability now to go in and review this in detail and upload our findings and controls. So hopefully that was worthwhile. If you have any questions about Mango, in particular the risk management module, then you can email mango@fqmlimited.com, or please log on to your Mango account and go through the support requirements.